NASA's Artemis 2 mission will make history as the first crewed mission to the moon in over 50 years, and now we finally know who will be making that epic journey. In this video, you'll find out the names of the crew, the mission's timeline, and why it will be the most significant human spaceflight in decades. Artemis 2 is set to launch no earlier than November 2024, and will be a follow-up test to the highly successful Artemis 1 mission, which saw an Orion spacecraft fly around the moon late last year. Both are part of NASA's Artemis program and the agency's long-delayed efforts to return human space exploration past low Earth orbit to the moon and beyond. So who are these lucky astronauts? The Artemis 2 mission will have a crew of 4. 3 will be NASA astronauts: Reid Wiseman as commander, Victor Glover as pilot, and Christina Koch as a mission specialist. The 4th crew member is from the Canadian Space Agency, Jeremy Hansen as a mission specialist. The selected crew include the first woman and person of color to fly to the moon. Additionally, the Canadian astronaut will be the first person from a country other than the United States to fly into deep space.
Finding out that I was being asked to fly on Artemis 2 was a humbling experience for me. It's something that I'm really excited about, passionate about. For me, it's a huge challenge. That was like a special moment for me when the president of the Canadian Space Agency called me and officially proclaimed to me that I would be flying on Artemis 2.
Artemis is building on an already solid legacy. If we look backwards in time just a little bit, right now our crews are on the International Space Station learning how to truly work off of the planet. How does the human body perform? How do we resupply this International Space Station? These are lessons that will be critical on the moon and as we look forward.
You know, pushing ourselves to explore is just core to who we are. That's a part of being a human. We want to know what's out there just beyond the horizon. And so the Artemis program is our opportunity. The most exciting aspect of this mission for me is the exploration we're doing is the first few steps on the path of getting humans to Mars. And I don't think that can be overstated.
When I think about the Artemis 2 crew, my first thought is that I am so privileged to be a part of it. These other astronauts have an amazing history, amazing record, amazing experience, and they're great people. I've known them all for many years. I've had a chance to work with them in different capacities, and I think our skills really complement each other. They all have a military background, and I come from a more raw, technical engineering background, and I think that complements one another really well. I think we'll work together great, and I hope to be someone on the crew that really is that engineering expert, and I hope that can be the way that I contribute the most.
These 4 will not land on the moon's surface, however. That task is for the yet-to-be-named Artemis 3 crew, likely not before 2026. Rather, the 10-day Artemis 2 mission will include an 8-day free return trajectory to swing around the moon and come straight back to Earth, splashing down in the Pacific Ocean. This will be a similar trajectory that Apollo 13 and its crew took in 1970, following that mission's in-flight accident. The reason for a flyby rather than an orbit similar to the Artemis 1 mission mainly stems from the fact that nearly 2 days of the flight will involve thoroughly testing the Orion spacecraft in a high Earth orbit. There just won't be enough fuel left for the mission after that to do anything other than a flyby. So let's take a look at the Artemis 2 mission profile. Before going into that though, if you're enjoying this, be sure to subscribe and launch that video's like button into orbit. Now back to the video. The mission can be essentially split into 4 phases: launch, spacecraft checkouts in high Earth orbit, a free return flight around the moon, and splashdown and recovery. As early as November 2024, the 4 Artemis 2 astronauts will board their Orion spacecraft perched atop a Space Launch System rocket at Launch Complex 39B at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. For a quick refresher, the 98-meter tall Block 1 SLS rocket is composed of 2 5-segment solid rocket boosters, a core stage, a launch vehicle stage adapter, an interim cryogenic propulsion stage, and the Orion spacecraft, which itself consists of a launch abort system, the crew capsule, and a European-built service module. The bulk of the ride to Earth orbit will take 8.5 minutes, with the powerful SLS rocket propelling the crew skyward with a liftoff thrust of 8.8 million pounds. Roughly 90 minutes into the mission, the ICPS upper stage will put Orion and its crew into a high Earth orbit with a high point of about 95,000 kilometers. During this roughly 42-hour orbit, the spacecraft will separate from the ICPS and the crew will perform an in-space rendezvous and proximity operations demonstration with the used stage in Orion. This will verify systems that will be critical during Artemis 3 and beyond, as those missions involve docking with lunar landers and the Gateway outpost. In addition to testing automated systems, the crew will verify handling of the spacecraft in manual mode. Once this activity is complete, Orion will move away from the ICPS, which will eventually be deorbited, burning up in Earth's atmosphere. The Artemis II crew will continue checking out the rest of Orion's systems, including habitation, life support, and communications, just to name a few. In particular, the spacecraft's connection with NASA's Tracking and Data Relay satellite system and the ground-based Deep Space Network will be evaluated. Additionally, an optical communications system will be tested, which is expected to have the ability to send data back to Earth at a rate of up to 260 megabits per second. Optical laser communications is expected to allow for, among other things, high-definition streaming of video of Artemis missions, including future landings. After the spacecraft's systems are checked out, Orion's European service module will be commanded to finish the job of pushing the spacecraft and crew onto a free return trajectory around the Moon. This third phase of flight has two parts, a 4-day outbound transit and a 4-day return transit. It'll be during this part of the mission that the 4 astronauts will be the first humans this century to see the full globe of Earth with their own eyes. At the flight's furthest point, Orion and its 4 astronaut crew will be roughly 10,000 kilometers beyond the far side of the Moon. That's nearly 395,000 kilometers from our blue marble. They'll even come close to beating the distance record from Earth of 400,171 kilometers, set by a human crew during the Apollo 13 mission in 1970. The spacecraft will not enter orbit, however, and swing back around toward Earth and the final phase of the mission, splashdown. Just like the Artemis I mission, Artemis II will target a spot in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego. Shortly before re-entry, the capsule and service module will separate. The crew capsule, protected by a heat shield, will blaze through the atmosphere, slowing down from nearly 40,000 kilometers per hour to about 520 kilometers per hour. When the main parachutes deploy, the vehicle will slow even more to about 32 kilometers per hour for splashdown, ending a mission that will have traveled more than 1 million kilometers. The US Navy will then retrieve the capsule and its crew by pulling it into the well deck of the San Antonio-class amphibious transport dock. The recovery process is expected to take about 1 to 2 hours, but once completed, this will allow the astronauts to disembark the capsule inside the ocean-going vessel after the well deck is drained, rather than in open water. However, that option is still available if needed. After medical tests, the crew will be transported back to shore for a hero's welcome, having been cemented in history as the first people to circle the Moon in the 21st century. With all the delays for the uncrewed Artemis I mission over the years, how close are we to actually flying the crewed Artemis II? Very close. In fact, by this summer, all major pieces are expected to be at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Stacking of the massive SLS rocket is expected to begin in the first part of 2024. That's just next year. The long lead item for this mission is actually the crew capsule, which is reusing some avionics boxes from the Artemis I mission. However, according to NASA, those have been installed. They just need to be tested before the rest of the capsule can be finished and qualified for spaceflight. The largest piece of the rocket, the core stage, is nearing completion at NASA's Michoud Assembly Facility in New Orleans. Its 5 parts have been assembled and the engines are being installed with an expected delivery date of June or July this summer. Meanwhile, the 10 segments that make up the 2 solid rocket boosters are complete and waiting in Utah to be delivered to Kennedy Space Center, likely sometime in August. Things are coming together. While there will still probably be a slip from November 2024, it isn't likely to be as significant as the slips that Artemis I endured. Either way, we are probably between 20 and 30 months from seeing this mission fly. The bigger wait, however, will be Artemis III, but that's a topic for another video. Artemis II will be the first time in more than 50 years that humans have gone farther than several hundred miles from Earth's surface. Apollo 17 was the last human moon mission, which occurred in December of 1972. To put that into perspective, in 1972, the most popular video game was Pong. The highest grossing film of all time was The Godfather, and digital watches were just starting to catch on. This was before the first barcodes on commercial products, before personal computers were popular, and before the introduction of electric power steering and airbags in cars. The internet was in its infancy, but decades away from the World Wide Web. A lot has changed since Apollo. In fact, we only just recently discovered the existence of water ice in the permanently shadowed craters of the Moon's South Pole, a resource that could make lunar exploration sustainable. Artemis II is significant because with it, NASA will finally get back to its roots of exploration, this time with the help of commercial and international partners, in hopes for new knowledge and peaceful cooperation. The Artemis program promises to expand humanity's presence back to the moon, this time to stay and lay the groundwork for human missions to Mars in the 2030s. It's a roller coaster journey that's been ongoing for 2 decades, but we're finally, once again on the cosmic shore, about to set sail on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which humanity has ever embarked. For a recap of the Artemis 1 mission, check out this video here. If you aren't excited about this program yet, I promise you will be after watching. If you've enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for more human spaceflight content or sharing it with friends and family. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, ad astra.